So a lot more people saw my bias tape skirt video than I thought was gonna see it. And not only have I gotten a couple of comments, both on TikTok and YouTube, that are like, oh my gosh, how did you do this? Which is really, really cool if you're someone who isn't a TikToker and that's how they got comments. I figure I will walk you through what all you need, how to do it, and kind of what the cost looks like for doing these skirts. So a couple of little details you do need to know going in. First, I'm a size 20. This part of my waist, like the natural part of my waist, is like 36 or 38 inches. Like I'm solid, okay? We'll say it that way. I'm a solid girl. So the bigger you are, frankly, a little bit more fabric is needed, and especially if you want particularly fluffy skirts. I've also been a size 0 where this part of my body was like a 29, and I would obviously need a little bit less fabric for it to be fluffy. That is a reality of the situation, unfortunately, not just like my opinion. Now, to be fair, when we're talking more fabric, we're talking about possibly half a yard for maximum fluffiness effect. Okay? And I also wanted to make sure that this is assuming that you have a sewing machine, because I do not hand sew. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at hand sewing. It doesn't work for me. And needles already locked and loaded and good to go. Everything else I assumed you needed to buy. So, oh, and scissors, fabric scissors. With fabric, now I have a Michaels near me. I know after Joann shut down, for a lot of people, that was like their outlet for fabric, and there hasn't been a ton of updated outlets for them. I have a Michaels and a Walmart near me. Very lucky. It means I can get fabric pretty easily. So my son is having a Marvel themed birthday in the next few months, and so I went and got the fabric that's Marvel themed. $5.99 a yard, and I got 2 yards of this one. Maybe even a lot of people, that is not an accessible price point, and I've been there in my life where that is not an accessible life point. So I also went and hit a Walmart to kind of get more options. So I will not be using this to make a skirt. This is for a different project, but because I needed it and I wanted to get a price point anyways, I bought it to get an idea. 2 yards of poly cotton, so it's a polyester cotton blend. Now I will say I prefer to have 100% cotton if I get an option, but that's not the way our world works. Like, it's expensive to get 100% cotton. So this, I believe, was $8 to $10 for 2 yards. This would make me a huge skirt. These are 100% cotton. They are 1 yard. They are 1 yard, and they were $5 to $7 with tax. $7 is a way, these are all a yard, so they are a lot smaller. So for somebody who's my size or close to my size, this is going to be a little bit less of a floofy skirt, and you will want to make sure that it actually fits around your whole body. So that's where we're starting. I'm making these 2 and these 3 into a skirt. The last thing you will need, bias tape. These are all single fold bias tapes. Now these 3 came from Michaels. They were $3.70 something. I think almost $4 for each one of these. This was $12 on its own. I will say I did not realize Walmart sold their bias tape for $2.50 or like $2.40. So it's like a whole $1.50 cheaper, and I will be going back to get it there. I will say neither one of them had a particularly good selection, but this is one of those things where you can actually go local, because these are typically used for quilts. So if you have a quilting shop near you, these can be bought there for much cheaper. So I started by folding everything in half and just cutting it down the center. I fold my things into the length that I need so that it is very easy to cut without having to use like a measuring tape or things like that. I will also say I did have to cut the Marvel themed one into fourths because of the napping of it, but still just fold it down in the measurements that I needed it to be and just double checked it. It was the fastest way and the easiest way to get it done. Plus, it made it really easy not to focus. So I do not pin my skirts. You should if you're learning. I don't anymore because, frankly, I found that they were just kind of getting in my way when I used my serger. So now that I've cut everything, I'm going to unfold it, fold it back together, wrong sides together. Okay. Oh, come on. There we go. so that the pretty parts are essentially facing each other, right? Just like that. Do that all the way down. This is where I would tell you if you're gonna pin, this is where you pin. You pin along both the short sides. Hot dog style, I guess. Both the short sides along through here, and this is what we'll stitch down. Okay. This honkin' machine, this beautiful girl, is a serger. If you do not have a serger, we're gonna split paths here. This is for everybody who's doing a sewing machine or your serger. This is your like anti-fraying stitch. So if you're doing a sewing machine, you're gonna turn it to a zigzag stitch. Now you can zigzag and do over the edge. When I didn't have a serger, just did the zigzag right next to the straight stitch. It did fine. So zigzag stitch. And if you have a machine where it gives you an option between like stitch, line, don't do that one. Do the one that's like stitch, 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 all the way in a zigzag. Now, first things first, you're going to serge this or stitch it down. Now, when you do that, you're going to do two things. One, you're going to do, if you're sewing, you're going to do your zigzag stitch towards the edge. It's still going to fray. That's okay. And then you're going to do a straight stitch down. And then we'll talk hems. All right, we have done all of the edges, and now it is to hemming. So, a couple of things here. I threw all mine behind me because that's usually where I keep things. So, again, I'm going to do a part of this on my serger. But if you don't have one, all you have to do, let's face it the right way, is for a bottom hem, fold once. You'll see the fray, so it's like fold once, then fold again, and that way you have a nice clean line. This is where I will tell you to use your pins. And you just do that again. Fold and fold. That'll be your bottom stitch all the way through. Now you can do this any kind of stitch you like. I generally, when I do it, I just do a straight stitch. Then I'm going to serge the bottom and the top before I stitch them down. But you don't have to do an excess stitch if you're just going to fold and stitch, okay? It's a little easier in the sense that you just fold this down. Do you see where it's frayed, like really frayed at the top? You're just going to... It was harder to do than I thought. You influencers really got it. Fold it down as much as you can. And I would stitch this first all the way down close, okay? Because then what we'll do is we'll fold it a bigger chunk to make our tunnel. And then you would stitch it down through here. Make sure when you make these channels that you are, that's what the tube part is called, that you're making it wide enough to fit any bias tape. This is a much thinner bias tape than what I've been using, but it's what I have sitting at my sewing station. So fold once, little fold, big fold. For me, it's gonna look a little different. If you have a serger, it's gonna look different because what you'll do is you'll serge the entire thing around both ways, like top and bottom, then we'll fold. I'll pull another day, another pair of pajamas that I definitely didn't spend all day in. So we are back at it. Now I've swapped my serger for my sewing machine. God, I look exhausted. Sorry to the world who has to see my tired eyeballs. Okay, so this is one of the smaller ones, and it turns out I apparently have extra that I didn't know about. So we're gonna start, just for the purposes of like showing this, I'm gonna do the small one and the big one so you guys can see what they look like at various points. I am going to take this piece that's got the like colors and stuff, and I'm actually gonna fold that down and make it my bias tape piece because, well, I paid for that fabric, so I might as well use it. I'm gonna open one of these. I am gonna cut this one in half because it doesn't have as big of a skirt. I cut this one in half and just use the other half on like the other shorter skirt I have that we can do that with. But how we're gonna do this is, first off, I'm going to take that bit off. Okay, so now we have the skirt. Now, I do this at my machine. Pins are hard for me because my hands hurt quite a bit. I've got some like arthritis issues in my hands, so pinching pins over and over again, really hard. So all I do is I take this bias tape. We're not going to put it in and stitch it in. We're just going to lay it down, fold it. And then as I stitch down, I'm just going to move that piece of bias tape up so it stays with the stitching. That's it. It's the whole secret. And I'm gonna drop that on the floor now because I don't need it. So, especially because I have this bit. I also always start where I attach everything. I feel like everybody does that, but maybe you don't know to do that. Maybe you're pretty new to the situation here. All right, I'm threaded and ready to go. In case it wasn't super clear, I'm just using the bias tape as essentially a ruler as to where the fold over should go. All right, we have now done the full top. And I lost it. There it is. There's now a little hole here to put the bias tape in. You will never close this. So make sure you backstitch here and here to keep your seam strong. But it will just stay open like this so that you can always tug and pull at the bias tape. Now for a hem. Because I have my serger line here, I won't do a full hem, like a double fold. So for me, hopefully this should make sense. Fold it like that once, so it looks like that. If you don't have a serger or you don't know how to overlock yet, it's fine. I still don't know how to overlock. I just bought the serger so I didn't have to learn. This is where you would do a double. So you go here and then one more. And that's how you would do it on just a sewing machine. I could do this, but I'm not going to. It's extra work for me and I don't have a risk of my stuff being frayed, so I won't do it. Because I'm a very strategic kind of lazy. I want to be able to make my own skirts, but not want to have to do more work on the skirt than needed. I did confirm that for these lesser skirts that have less fabric, you can just cut one of those bias tapes in half. I just measured it out against my waist and it's plenty. So I would not recommend that for the bigger ones just because you do have a chance of losing the bias tape inside the skirt, which has happened to me on a couple of occasions. So this one next. And the base of the skirt is done. So I'm just going to repeat that about 11 billion more times. I'm going to repeat it for all the skirts and then I'll show you how to thread it through. But this is the base of it. By the way, if you're one of those people that's like, I can't sew, my stitches won't be straight. There's not a single stitch in this thing that is the same length. Well, that's not true. It's the same length, but that's because I put it on the machine. But they're not straight either. Don't worry about it. Don't stress. Base layers are done. It's a lot of fabric. This is the first one I'm going to do, which is the essentially like skinnier one, skinnier fit, however you want to phrase that. WTF, mate. I know that there was a hole. Oh. So these two skinnier fit ones, I was able to do half of a bias tape, which means it'll cut your cost even further. The next thing you want is a safety pin. Ideally one that's no wider when closed than the bias tape. So, come on, close. Cool, it's not closing. There we go. So, see how that's not as wide? Perfect. Makes it easy. All you do is just stick a hole in here. Go boop. And if you've never done elastic, then this will be a new concept for you. But if you've done elastic, it's the exact same thing. Push it into the hole and just maneuver it so it comes out. Now, it will be difficult at the seam parts. Don't just pull it, kind of wiggle it, okay? Because if you just pull it, it's likely to come apart or rip.
So then once you have a bit of a gather here, you push a little bit in, you hold it, pinch, do a little pull action here. And you just do that over and over. Hopefully seeing someone do this in as real time as I could possibly get it inspires you to do it yourself. Now for the cost breakdown. The red skirt in the end was $7.46. The next one, our Marvel skirt, totaled out to be $13.95. The following one, which is the science skirt, was $14.97. She was a bit pricier. And then our most pricey was this book skirt at $18.97. And last but not least, the skinny fit was $7.17. Hopefully this inspires you to make your own.